when you see how many people after 2008, after he was arrested, after he went to jail, were actively taking money from him. MIT took money from him and tried to hide it and said to make sure that any donations from Jeffrey are listed as anonymous. So
Wow.
you find out like people are like, they referred to him as Voldemort, like you couldn't say his name.
The Justice Department released so many records from the Epstein Files today, more than 3 million pages plus videos and photos, that if you were to print them out and stack them up, they'd be about 3 times taller than the Statue of Liberty.
Within the 3 million some Jeffrey Epstein files released by the DOJ in recent weeks, hidden camera video is shedding light on a little known but critical story of Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Black Book. How did the FBI ultimately secure the only known copy? Jay O'Brien has a fascinating story.
Who created this book?
Epstein himself.
This book was made by Epstein?
All his Mercedes, all his claims, they were supposed to have this. He made all of this disappear.
Newly released documents tonight say President Trump personally warned officials about Jeffrey Epstein decades ago. An FBI interview summary describing how President Trump called the then Palm Beach police chief to tell him, "Thank goodness you're stopping Jeffrey Epstein. Everyone has known he's been doing this." Adding people in New York knew Epstein was disgusting.
He kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club because Jeffrey Epstein was a creep, and that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning.
And these 2 drafted emails are both dated July 18th, 2013, and they were saved in Jeffrey Epstein's email accounts. They appear to be draft emails from Epstein to itself. It's not actually clear who authored them, and there's no indication the messages were ever sent, no evidence they were shared with Bill Gates or anyone else.
Joe Rogan recently shocked listeners by openly acknowledging that some of his close friends were named in the newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. His comments came after the U.S. Department of Justice made public a massive new batch of records tied to Epstein, including more than 3 million pages of documents, roughly 2,000 videos, and nearly 180,000 images. Although many of the materials were heavily redacted, a pattern has begun to emerge. Political leaders, billionaires, corporate executives, and even members of the British royal family appear repeatedly in connection with Epstein, in some cases even after his initial arrest. Rogan described the entire situation as a rabbit hole that seems to go deeper the more people examine it. He raised a broader question many have asked. If someone like Epstein was able to operate at that level for so long, could there be others like him right now? Rogan and his guest discussed the idea that Epstein may have functioned as a professional fixer, someone operating in the murky space between government institutions and private power. This type of figure, they suggested, doesn't belong fully to any one organization, but instead connects elites across industries. The newly released records include flight logs, internal emails, contact lists, sworn statements, and video evidence showing influential individuals appearing around Epstein over many years. What stands out to many observers is how frequently certain names reappear, despite previous attempts to dismiss their connections as coincidence or rumor. With timelines and documented communications now surfacing, scrutiny has intensified. Rogan also revisited claims he once dismissed. He said Alex Jones had warned him years ago about Epstein's Island, describing it as a place where powerful people were allegedly compromised through illicit encounters that could later be used as leverage. At the time, Rogan said he found the story unbelievable, comparing it to outlandish conspiracy theories. Looking back, he now says that what once seemed absurd has taken on a more unsettling tone in light of confirmed facts about Epstein's crimes. Among the prominent names resurfacing in the documents is Bill Gates. The files reportedly contain emails between Gates and Epstein, as well as references to meetings. Gates has strongly denied any wrongdoing, stating that while he met Epstein at social gatherings, he never visited the island and never engaged in inappropriate conduct. Melinda French Gates has publicly stated that she met Epstein once and immediately found him disturbing. She later said that learning more about her former husband's association with Epstein contributed to deep pain in their marriage, though she has emphasized that any remaining questions should be directed to those directly involved. Some individuals named in the files have claimed that Epstein attempted to blackmail them, alleging he collected compromising material for leverage. Rogan questioned that explanation, asking why people who felt threatened would continue to meet with him. He speculated that Epstein may have operated as an intelligence asset or intermediary, possibly supported indirectly by powerful institutions. While there is no conclusive public evidence confirming such claims, Rogan suggested Epstein's unexplained wealth and high-level access indicate he was unlikely to have acted entirely alone. The discussion also touched on the idea of honeypot operations, in which influential figures are allegedly lured into compromising situations. Rogan argued that individuals in positions of power may have believed they were simply attending exclusive gatherings among elites, not realizing they could be documented and exposed. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, such situations could create leverage over them later. The documents also reference individuals connected to Donald Trump's broader circle. Trump has denied wrongdoing and stated he cut ties with Epstein years before the financier's final arrest. However, records reportedly show various public figures maintaining contact with Epstein after his earlier legal troubles. Elon Musk has also been mentioned in emails discussing potential meetings, though he has insisted he never visited Epstein's island or flew on his plane. The Justice Department has stated that its review of the Epstein files is complete and that no new charges are expected beyond those already brought against Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell. However, the slow and heavily redacted release of documents has drawn criticism from survivors, lawmakers, and commentators who argue that transparency has been inconsistent. Rogan criticized the staggered rollout, suggesting that modern technology could have allowed for faster redaction of victim names while releasing the bulk of the material.
Finally, Rogan mentioned the resurfacing of online theories, such as Pizzagate, noting that certain words appear frequently across the documents, fueling renewed speculation in some online communities. While those earlier theories were officially dismissed and linked to misinformation, the sheer volume of communications in the Epstein files has reignited debate among some observers who believe there may be deeper patterns yet to be fully understood. As the latest document release continues to be analyzed, public attention remains focused on the broader question: how was Epstein able to maintain relationships with so many powerful figures for so long? Whether the files ultimately provide clear answers or only deepen the mystery, the case continues to raise troubling questions about power, accountability, and transparency at the highest levels of society. Jeffrey Epstein was an American financier whose criminal case exposed a vast network of sexual abuse involving underage girls and powerful associates. Although he presented himself as a wealthy money manager with elite connections, much of his fortune and client list were never fully explained. Over time, investigations revealed that Epstein used his wealth, influence, and private properties to exploit vulnerable minors while cultivating relationships with politicians, academics, royalty, and business leaders. In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida, began investigating Epstein after a parent reported that her teenage daughter had been paid to give him a massage. Detectives soon uncovered multiple similar accounts from underage girls who said they were recruited, paid, and in some cases pressured to bring other minors to Epstein's mansion. Despite mounting evidence, Epstein reached a controversial 2008 plea agreement with federal prosecutors. He pleaded guilty to state charges of soliciting prostitution from a minor and procuring a minor for prostitution. The deal allowed him to avoid federal charges and resulted in a 13-month sentence in a county jail, during which he was granted work release privileges. The agreement drew widespread criticism years later for being unusually lenient and for granting immunity to potential co-conspirators. Epstein owned multiple high-profile properties, including a mansion in Palm Beach, a townhouse in New York City, a ranch in New Mexico, an apartment in Paris, and a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands known as Little St. James.
The island became central to public attention after numerous flight logs and testimonies suggested that influential figures had traveled there. Flight records from Epstein's private jet, sometimes referred to in the media as the Lolita Express, listed politicians, celebrities, academics, and royalty. While appearing in flight logs does not imply wrongdoing, the documents fueled intense scrutiny about who knew what and when. In July 2019, federal prosecutors in New York charged Epstein with sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. The indictment alleged that between 2002 and 2005, he abused dozens of underage girls, some as young as 14, in New York and Florida. Shortly after his arrest, additional accusers came forward. Investigators searched his Manhattan townhouse and reportedly discovered large amounts of photographic evidence, digital storage devices, and cash. The renewed charges signaled that federal authorities were revisiting the case despite the earlier plea agreement. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York while awaiting trial. His death was ruled a suicide by hanging. However, the circumstances, including malfunctioning cameras and guards failing to conduct regular checks, sparked widespread public suspicion and numerous conspiracy theories. Multiple investigations later concluded there was no evidence of homicide, but public skepticism remains strong. Ghislaine Maxwell, a longtime associate of Epstein, was arrested in 2020 and charged with helping recruit and groom underage girls for abuse. The Epstein case continues to generate debate because of the scale of his connections and the unanswered questions about how he accumulated wealth and influence. Document releases, court records, and investigative reporting have shed light on aspects of his operations, but many believe the full scope of his network has not been completely revealed. At its core, the case represents not only a story of horrific abuse, but also a broader reckoning about power, accountability, and the protection of vulnerable individuals. If you found this breakdown helpful and want clear, fact-based updates as new information comes out, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. We're committed to covering complex stories with careful research, balanced context, and respect for the facts, so you can stay informed without the noise.